You would think as someone with my username and general taste in games, I'd have done this list a lot sooner, but like I always say, better late than never. Today we're taking a look at games that take a lot from cartoons, be it in animation, voiceover, music, etc. They can't be based on a pre-existing show, however, and have to capture the spirit of what inspires them. There's a ton of games that could fight for a spot on this list because if you think about it, this isn't restricted to having just played the game. But that said, I want to keep it down to the stuff I've played myself, and I'll be going over the strongest qualities of each entry's animated appeal. So now, without further ado, I give you my top 10 animated video games. Enjoy, everybody! Okay, so I've already broken one of my rules with this entry. I looked through all the games I own and I could only find 9 titles that I thought were worthy of this list that weren't based on actual cartoons, and I didn't want to add something just for filler, so I decided to put Gex on here. I have not played any of the Gex games, but I know he's a wisecracking lizard who likes to watch TV, and I think I saw a cartoon-inspired level somewhere in a few reviews. I'll tell you what, the games are on PSN for $6 a pop, so I'll buy them and I'll play them. Always wanted to try them out and I've heard they're pretty good. Not gonna lie, I almost considered putting Bubsy on here, but I would never live that down. Anyways, let's get on with the real top 10. Sorry. So I'm putting Shantae on here, but I'm a bit conflicted. Half Genie Hero seems to be the de facto game to talk about because of its art style. And I know I'm going to sound crazy for saying this, but I think I like Pirates Curse's pixel art a bit more than Half Genie Hero's animated look. That said, you can't deny this game is very pretty, especially when it comes to the character artwork. Stuff like the Giga Mermaid was a real eye-opener, and I swear it's not for the reasons that you may think. So you know what, I think I'll just put both games in this entry. They both capture certain animated aspects pretty well. Goofy scripts, charming characters, and I love those full-size drawings Pirates Curse uses in its dialogue scenes. I just wish those scenes had full-on voiceovers instead of a couple voiced words every now and again. Still, Shantae's got the makings of an animated game, and I only hope that gets better with future installments. Now this is unheard of. This is a countdown of mine, and this is the only Nintendo game to be found on it. Boasted to be the ultimate 2D game before a certain somebody took that title 9 years later, we got Wario Land Shake It. And that was actually the biggest selling point to me when I first heard of the game. I never played a Wario Land game prior to this one, but I remember I would watch the trailer on the Wii's Nintendo channel and just hoping I'd get the chance to try it out. It's been a while since I last played it, but I remember it being pretty solid. It's also got one of my favorite interpretations of Wario's character, going for a more macho feel, and all his animations capture that side of him very well. I'm trying to think of any other Nintendo games that had some kind of cartoon elements or standout animation, and nothing really comes to mind, at least from what I've played. Shake It is one of a kind, which is both a blessing and a curse. I'd love to see Nintendo do something like this again, Wario related or otherwise. Even when he was a responsible member of society, Conker was heavily inspired by the likes of classic animation, and it was always the vibe Rare was going for. Apart from having 99% of Bad Fur Day's cast being voiced by one guy, Conker himself is full of qualities that scream Looney Tunes. Cute design mixed with a snarky attitude, his ease of breaking the fourth wall, and those trademark white gloves. He's like the video game equivalent to Bugs Bunny, and I think that's why so many people love him. But what really drives the cartoon aspect home is Bad Fur Day's soundtrack. The game's composer, Robin Beanland, cites Looney Tunes composer Carl Stalling as one of his inspirations, and nowhere better is that heard than in Conker. There are so many tracks that capture that feel, with one of my favorites being The Old Chap. It's got that bit at the start, whatever that instrument is. It reminds me so much of Animaniacs and of course the WB logo at the start of a Looney Tunes short. In some cases, the music also switches in tone to match the action on screen, commonly referred to as Mickey Mousing. The track Bullfish's Revenge best describes this, used when Conker talks to the catfish, and it does not miss a beat. Do yourself a favor and listen to the Live and Reloaded renditions of these tracks, and the stuff from 12 Tales, and you know what, pretty much the whole soundtrack. If the world were graced with another Conker game, this is one aspect of the series I hope isn't forgotten about. Oh yeah, now we're getting into the good stuff. Skullgirls finds inspiration from a ton of places, but it personally reminds me of anime like Cowboy Bebop and other series like Batman, stuff that's a bit on the darker side. That said, it's absolutely lively. Half the time I boot up Skullgirls, I'm not trying to be something resembling a competent player, I just want to hear the sights and sounds for as long as possible. And it's a shame I'm not very good because I don't get to see all the crazy special moves too often, but I can at least listen to the music, and I gotta say, the character select theme is my favorite piece in the whole game. It makes me think of a classic 80s, 90s anime, and it feels dangerous, hopeful, and a little sexy all at once. Oh, and of course, I can't forget about Peacock. That girl on her own encompasses everything slapstick, to the point where it gets a little scary. But that's Skullgirls for you. A little scary, a little seductive, full of references that everyone's gonna love. Like I said, the good stuff. Those guys at Naughty Dog are well known for their animation skills, and even when hardware was more limited, they made it look easy. They rocked the PS1 with Crash Bandicoot and blew everyone away with their PS2 debut, Jak and Daxter. Jak was what sold me on the fact a game could very much be like a cartoon. When I was 6, I remember seeing one of the Jak commercials and being mesmerized hearing Daxter speak. I knew games could have dialogue, but I never saw anything quite like Jak at the time. And though the game's writing is pretty standard, the animation's what set it apart. Watching Jak jump, attack, and walk around makes for some of the most satisfying platforming I have ever done, like ever. And they added stuff that would hardly ever get noticed, but did it anyways, cause that's just how they roll. And if we go back to Crash, they were dead set on nailing a Looney Tunes vibe with the animation, and especially with Crash himself. He reminds me of something along the lines of the Tasmanian Devil, and it never gets old seeing his expressions and death animation, so I'd say mission accomplished. This is an aspect that Vicarious Visions really paid attention to for the Insane trilogy, and the results are everything I could have wanted out of a next-gen Crash. Though can you imagine if Naughty Dog did something like Jak 1 again all these years later? That would be pretty amazing. It's too bad they think they're above making games with talking animals nowadays. What happens when you get a bunch of guys together who worked on licensed games and are allowed to let their imaginations run wild? You get Earthworm Jim, that's what. The first two games sport the kind of creativity that really takes advantage of the medium of animation. Nothing's off the table, and no matter how weird things get, it somehow works for Jim. Probably because the guys behind it were so confident in the absurdity of it all. When it came to the animation itself, everything was painstakingly hand-drawn, resulting in a quality few games could boast about back then, and it's still amazing to see now. Growing up, I only had the second game, but the instant I saw Jim, I immediately liked him. And I knew the game barely made a lick of sense, but I was having too much fun to care. I'm also not ashamed to say these games introduced me to a lot of classical musical pieces, just like any good cartoon would. Whenever I hear Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, all I can think of is, well, blind cave salamanders shooting sheep. Oh, you wish I was making that up? Nope. This should come as no surprise, of course Sly Cooper would be on here. The whole series has the makings of a Saturday morning cartoon, with its colorful cast of characters, set pieces, and of course, the way you take out enemies. Though if I had to choose just one, I think the first Sly gets the toon vibe down to a T, at least when we're talking about the original trilogy. It has a more vibrant color scheme than its sequels do, the characters move a lot more fluid, and the music I find to be a lot catchier. The later games go for a more immersive feel, but Sly 1's music is more bouncy, and a lot of tracks are liable to get stuck in your head. You can also tell Sucker Punch really tried to sell the aspect of it being a cartoony platformer, with goofy sound effects thrown in at parts like the Master Thief sprint and stuff like the Lucky Horseshoe, things that were only in Sly 1. The look of Sly was also done in a way they dubbed toon shading, where they made the game's backgrounds look really detailed while keeping characters simply shaded and outlined, very much like a classic animated film. Couple that with the voice work and stylized cutscenes, and I'm surprised it's taken this long for Sly to get some kind of actual cartoon in the works. But even if that doesn't pan out for him, we still have the games that captured it so flawlessly from day one. Ah, Rayman Origins, what a work of art you are. Seriously, this whole game feels like one big playable art book. Rayman Legends is no slouch in the art department either, but something's telling me to go with Origins on this one. It's another one of those games where imagination is in full force, filled with stuff nobody would think about if they were ones to play it safe. Reminds me a lot of Earthworm Jim, actually. Origins had the kind of wackiness that was sorely missing from games at the time of its release, and it was a breath of fresh air seeing someone outside the Nintendo circle doing something bright and colorful. I have memories playing through the Land of the Living Dead, carefully avoiding the fire and just saying to myself, man, that fire looks amazing. This was one of those games that inspired me to keep on drawing, to try new things, and to always keep those creative juices flowing. And even when I rewatch the E3 trailer every now and again, it still gets me excited for this game. It also got me a good grade for an assignment I had in high school on the 12 Principles of Animation. That opening cutscene is perfection, by the way. Yeah, nobody's surprised, you all saw this coming. Cuphead is the closest thing to a cartoon while still being an original video game, from how it was made to the style it was inspired by. The fact that it was spearheaded by a couple brothers who had no prior experience in animation, but were driven to this project because of their sheer passion for the art, well, that's something we can all learn from. I'm gonna refrain from saying much else because I already talked about this game ad nauseum. Really, I should have put this at the start of the video, but as I'm sure we're all aware by now, my hindsight is kinda 20/20. But yeah, Cuphead, ultimate cartoon-inspired video game. Ain't no doubt about that. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to give this video a like, share it with a friend, check out all my social media outlets, and all that good stuff. I guess I should also plug my Patreon page, so if that's something you've ever been curious about, follow the link to the page and you'll learn everything that you could ever want to know about it. And while you're here, feel free to check out some of the videos I got on the screen right here. I really liked making them, hopefully you'll like watching them. And with all that said, I will see you guys next time. Later.